Good evening. Welcome to Have I Got News for You? I'm Stephen Mangan. In the news this week, recently discovered footage shows a young Boris Johnson helping his brother perform a magic trick. As BBC TV Centre finally closes its doors and iconic shows have to be made elsewhere, removal men carefully follow instructions regarding Jools Holland's piano. In Westminster, George Osborne asks his Treasury team to stand behind his latest budget. And in Cyprus, after his meeting with the finance minister is cancelled, Shadow Chancellor Ed Balls has 2 hours to kill before his flight home. With Ian tonight is the broadcaster, journalist and Labour peer whose controversial career in TV once had her deliver a commentary while a couple had sex in the studio. Not a report on censorship, just the 1987 Newsnight Christmas party. Please welcome Joan Bakewell. And on Paul's team tonight is the co-host of TV quiz Pointless, who says that his role there is to add to the Brokeback Mountain-style sexual frisson of the show. Exactly the same reason we got him here tonight. Please welcome Paul's bitch, Richard Osman. And we start with the biggest stories of the week. Ian and Joan, take a look at this.
Yes.
Ian Duncan Smith.
The poor.
The poor.
He knows a lot about them, and the rich, he's one of them, so that's all right. He's on familiar territory there.
Yes, they look very
And
happy.
here's a man who's taken the wrong path and is sticking to it.
Yes, he's just looking for some ideas. That was a selection of popular Tories. Ending with the Chancellor.
So
He gave a moving speech at Morrison's.
Yes, this is the introduction of significant changes both to the benefit system and to George Osborne's accent. Let's start with the benefit changes. There are lots of benefit changes and they're all quite complicated, so Ian.
Well, there's a cap on total benefits you can claim in a year. That's very popular. People don't want to feel that if they work, they're going to make less money than if they were on benefits. That's one. They've changed the disability living benefit. There's the supposed bedroom tax. That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
They are important, but the main thrust of them is we're all in it together, except the people who aren't. And they're not in it. They're not even in the spare bedroom. It's very difficult for a Tory government comprised of very rich people to deliver a punitive welfare budget. People do think it's all right for you. And when you go to Morrison's and put on a fake accent and say British when you mean British and kinda, it's awful. Can we see a clip? He's not only trying to look as though he's sort of vaguely middle class, he's trying to be Tony Blair, which is tragic.
Let's have a look. The first clip is how he used to speak. The second one ain't.
And they want to know if we are the change.
Badly want it fixed.
The British people.
The British people...
20%.
To 20%.
Yes, he was trying to sound less posh by saying British.
British.
Instead of British. He said wanna.
Yep.
Instead of want to. And he said people like you instead of oiks. Why is Morrison so popular with not comedians? I thought George Osman was a comedian for a minute. Why is Morrison's... Well, I'll start that again.
Yeah.
Why is Morrison so popular with politicians?
Well, comedians are more popular than Morrison's. It's because it gives them a chance to tell low-paid workers it's their fault.
Yes. Morrison's. I don't know what it is with politicians and Morrison's.
Yeah, what is it about politicians and
I don't know.
Morrison's?
I don't know. I just don't
either.
know. George Osborne went to the Morrison's Distribution Centre in Kent to give a speech.
Yeah.
David Cameron went to the same place in March 2010.
Yeah.
Nick Clegg has been to a Morrison's in Norwich. And Ed Miliband was on special offer at a Morrison's in Since Work and Pension Secretary Ian Duncan-Smith introduced the benefit changes, what have over 400,000 people asked him to go and do?
Live on £53 a week.
And is he gonna?
And they want him... But some of them want him to do it for more than a week. I imagine even he concedes he could only do it if the house, the heating, the rates, the community tax, all that was taken care of, and the £53 was actually for food and snacks and chewing gum and whatever.
That's quite shocking. Do you think he chews gum? I've suddenly gone off him in a big way.
And 53 quid's worth a week of it as well. That's a lot. Market trader David Bennett told the BBC he'd have to support his family on £53 a week, and that's what started this whole petition off. How has Ian Duncan-Smith defended
He said he was
benefit reforms?
unemployed himself at one point. Things were so bad they had to sack the butler.
Yes. That is pretty much exactly
Well, he was
right.
unemployed, wasn't he? Because
It was when he left. It was when the...
He said, I've worked hard all my life and nobody has given me a damn penny. Although he has been given the rent-free use of a large 16th century farmhouse on the ancestral estate of his father-in-law, the 5th Baron of Cottesloe. So it hasn't been entirely a struggle.
Yeah, brought up on an estate.
What's happened to Ian Duncan-Smith twice?
He's been unemployed twice.
He has.
After he left the army. But I think he actually went on the dole, didn't he? I think
No, he said he
did
didn't.
claim. No,
He didn't.
He says he didn't claim anything. He said of losing his job in the early 90s, I had to go home and tell my wife that the wheels had come off the bus, effectively ending his career as a conductor. He went on, we looked at each other, and she said, God, what are we going to do for money? Fortunately, they were given rent-free use of that large 16th century farmhouse.
The overall benefit figure is going up, and it is going to be about 200 billion in a couple of years'
You know
time.
where it's going
so
to?
even you lot, when you get in, will have to do something
Do you know
about
where
it.
it's going? At least 2/3 of the benefit money goes to older retired people.
So it's your fault.
For being old?
Look, time to strip the pensioners of all those freebies.
For example, we just...
Not at all. Good heavens above. Do you want to hear what they would say in the home counties? We have worked all our lives and we deserve the reward in our older years. And they're right.
And they're right.
They are right.
So
Of course they are.
the fact you get these for free and tellies and heating and everything.
Everything is actually for my television. I have a bus pass.
You have a bus pass?
I have a bus pass. I climb on the bus with a whole lot of other jolly retired people and we have a very good time prancing around London.
Spending money going to champagne and oyster bars.
£53
Going to
a
the
week of it.
opera.
I think you're mixing up Oyster Card with Oyster Bar.
Oh, yeah. No, I was really shocked because this week The Guardian said, when are pensioners going to actually pay up? Your generation.
You know, there's a
the Queen
hideous,
as well.
there is a hideous attempt to create a war between the young and the old.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's a
that'd be awesome.
real attempt to make...
That would be awesome.
Are you seeing a TV
Would you like
pilot
that?
already?
Oh, if I can buy the rights, Joan, let's talk.
There are
versus
more
old.
of us than there are of the young, of course.
Yeah, there's more. That's what makes it interesting.
That's
There's
right.
more of you, but you're
But
less
they're
fit.
quicker.
Yeah,
They're
that's the
quicker.
thing.
We've got the buses sewn
We've
up.
got the
Yeah.
bus, we've got the bus franchise on our side. Yes, I can see the strategy.
I can see it working quite well. Who would be your leader?
I can't imagine.
General Bakewell. I can see it now.
I think it's Brucey, isn't it?
Brucey?
Brucey would be the leader.
I thought you said, I think that's
No,
Brucey.
I know that.
Are you talking TV pilot now, or are you just talking Mass Revolution? Which way is it?
I'm not talking TV pilot. I say let's go straight to series.
Yes. Absolutely.
Now, of course, it's not just those on low income that's affected by the cuts. What's going to happen to those people earning over £150,000 a year?
Well, they get a tax break.
They get a tax cut.
So that's nice.
It's nice for them, isn't it?
It's
Yes.
nice if they go to the opera. You need tickets. You're not going to go to many operas on £53 a week, are you?
No.
That doesn't get you far if you want to see Wagner's Ring, and I understand.
I'm afraid the audience has gone lowbrow on you.
Yes, the poor souls are getting their income tax cut from 50 to 45p. So, yes, another good news, the Queen is getting a £6 million pay rise.
Hey.
And, Joan, you'll still get your winter fuel allowance, so it's all good news.
I tried to send mine back.
Did you?
I rang them and said, I don't need this money, will you please take it back? And they said, we have no mechanism for retrieving it.
I will take it over if you...
Well, strange you should say that, because they set up a charity to receive the £200 cheque. It's the only way to do it.
They've got the warmest offices in London. But the Queen has got so many spare bedrooms.
Yes.
All her kids have left home. Surely she owes us £6 million in bedroom tax.
She must.
Because she's on benefits. She's not. She's state-funded.
Finally, what else has been abolished this week to be replaced by 7 new ones?
Oh, the class system has now been abolished. Is that it?
That is right,
The
yes.
upper middle working old sociological format that they devised back in the 1940s is now is now 7.
Has anyone taken the test?
Right. Good. How many of you were elite?
Oh,
one.
come on. Just because you lied.
Established middle class?
That sounded
here,
established to me.
Traditional working class? Richard, do you socialise with lorry drivers? That's one of the questions on this BBC
I do.
question.
He's a very good friend of mine, lorry drivers. He works in the city for Deutsche Bank.
It has a different tenor if you ask that question of a woman, doesn't it, really?
Do you socialise with lorry drivers, Joan?
Not often enough.
Right.
One of the questions is, do you like classical music? And if you like classical music, it tends to move you towards the elite group. Well, I think that's an outrage. How patronising to suggest that everybody who likes classical music belongs to a certain class.
True, though.
A love for...
I ticked the box that said hip-hop. I was trying to bring my score down.
Did it work? Did you think you were applying for the National Health Service latest operation?
This is the latest round of benefit cuts. Several politicians have actually tried to experience life on benefits. According to the Mirror, Anne Widdecombe once spent a week on a London housing estate. Part of the government's successful Get Back to Work or We'll Send Anne Widdecombe round campaign. Paul and Richard, take a look at this.
Yes.
Right, yes.
Yes.
Sunderland's new right-winger.
Yes, indeed. That's him not doing a fascist salute, and look funny, he's Muslim again.
There's John Terry.
Yeah. So, yes, it's the extraordinary story of Sunderland Football Club getting rid of their manager and employing the new guy, Paulo Di Canio, who has talked about being a fascist and shown giving fascist salutes. And for Newcastle fans, Christmas has come early. They must be astonished. It's shot themselves in the foot. Or was that hung themselves from a lamppost? They've done something very bad.
As well as being a fascist, he's a lunatic. That's the best thing about him.
Yes.
And you have proof of that?
Well, he just is. Anyone else, Harry can.
He just is. Move along.
Yeah. I did feel sorry for him in his press conference because they kept badgering and badgering him. He looked like he'd had it up to here, didn't he?
Yeah, up to here.
But he said, I'm a fascist, I'm not a racist.
Yes.
Which, you know, that's fine, clearly.
Well, that's like John... I mean, John Terry, for example, is not a fascist.
So, this press conference...
Yes.
How did Paolo Di Canio attempt to draw a line under his political beliefs?
He rounded everyone up and shipped them out.
What he did was he said, I am not a political person. I believe him. This might not be a political statement. It could be just him waving. And this could just be him stretching. And this could be him doing an impression of emu. Anyone know where Di Canio is here in this photo?
That's him there.
That's him
He's
there,
right in
yeah.
the middle.
Oh, no, not where is he in the photo, but where...
As we get older, the questions get easier, don't they? Is this a funeral of a prominent right-winger?
It is, yes. A well-known Italian fascist who was linked to a terrorist attack in Bologna. And here are Paolo's fellow mourners. who I think are just giving a nice synchronised goodbye wave. Paolo Di Canio called Mussolini basically a very principled, ethical individual, not to mention a midfield general, not afraid to shoot, who could also hang in the air by the post. But behind all this, what really matters is the person behind the beliefs. Is he a nice man to his players?
No.
Yeah, he's not great.
No, he isn't, no. 'Cause he was at Swindon, wasn't he, before?
Yes.
It doesn't garner the same amount of attention.
No, it's a bit like invading Czechoslovakia. You've got to invade Poland before people take any notice.
It's going to make the end of the season exciting, though, isn't it? Just on a footballing note.
I think it's what the Premiership's been missing, a fascist manager.
No, I think it's been missing an openly fascist manager.
Openly fascist. Yes, he likes kicking his players. He says, it can happen that I kick my players' bottoms, but hopefully it will only be when we are celebrating. Did anyone see the Irish Daily Star's big scoop on the Di Canio appointment?
No, I missed it.
It said, not ready to comment. Irish star Andy Reid has no opinion on the Paolo Di Canio controversy. Forest Ace Reid, 30, played for Sunderland from 2008 to 2011. A family member told the Star, Andy has left Sunderland. He wouldn't have a say on what's going on. The parents of current Black Cat star John O'Shea weren't available when contacted. You heard it here first. And what's all this got to do with David Miliband?
He was the deputy chair and he resigned in protest.
He does happen to be going to New York anyway. How do we feel about losing a Miliband brother to the States?
Not as good as his brother Ed does.
Yes, now Miliband's resigned as MP, we'll probably never have the chance to see that old embarrassing photo of him ever again, will we? And David Miliband was, of course, a former colleague of Ed Ball's. Shall we see how Ed's getting on with his Keep Fit routine?
Actually, you've missed something, because behind him, on the right-hand side as we look, is David Miliband.
This is the controversial decision to appoint Paolo Di Canio as the manager of Sunderland. Most of the footballing world was shocked to hear Paolo Di Canio say he was a big admirer of Benito Mussolini, except for Harry Redknapp, who immediately tried to sign him. Many Sunderland fans were upset at the idea that their club was managed by a fascist, saying they have a proud tradition of welcoming people, regardless of colour or creed, just as long as you're not a Geordie. Sunderland accent right there. Buying meat products has never been so difficult. You never know what's inside. So, now on to round two, the pies of news. Buzz in when you've identified the news filling. Ian.
That's the winner, the Grand National. This is horse meat found in products, including one which is meant to be fish. Is that right?
Not quite, Ian. Fish is the new thing that's being missold. According to Mark Drummond from the National Federation of Fish Fryers, it's more of a problem with wet fish.
I didn't think this whole horse meat scandal had affected me at all.
No.
But this is the first year when betting on the Grand National has made me feel peckish.
Yeah.
As Tesco's have taken a lot of flack, their customer care team didn't help matters. What did they do?
They took out a lot of ads. There were
Yes.
full-page ads in the papers.
Yeah.
Tesco are apologising to us all the time.
Yeah.
It's like the power companies this week. Big ad saying, we're so sorry we got caught.
Other supermarkets are in the firing line. Aldi, for instance, one of your favourites, Ian. You heard about
No,
their...
I'm more of a little man.
More of a little man. You're more of a little man. Their beef lasagna, eaten any of that?
Not recently, but apparently that had a problem with horses in it.
Wasn't that 100% horse meat?
Yeah. Actually came with a sheepskin noseband.
Yes, a lasagna that's 100% horse meat.
Yeah.
What, no pasta or cheese?
No. You don't want to know where that came from.
They tracked it all down to this Romanian abattoir, and the bloke was outraged. He said, of course it's horse. That's what we sell. We sell horse. It's really good.
Tell you what is the world coming to if you can't trust a Romanian abattoir?
And it's not just horses that are trying to get into lasagna. I spotted Rebecca Brooks attempting a new career path by trying to pass herself off as some minced beef. Yes, it's yet another week for vegetarians to feel smug. Still, just wait until they find out how much human saliva goes into making tofu. Fingers on buzzers, here's the next pie. Yes, Joan?
Well, I was there at the time. It was Eddie Mair's interview with Boris Johnson on the Andrew Marr show. He drew a conclusion that was pushing interviewing to the very edge, and we all enjoyed it enormously.
Shall we see how the interview panned out? It started very well.
All right, Boris Johnson, you may now interrupt. Good morning, how are you?
Very, very good, thank you.
But then he was asked a question.
The Times let you go after you made up a quote. Why did you make up a quote?
Well, this again, you know, these are big terms for what happened. Well, I can tell you the whole thing. I mean, I think are you sure our viewers would want to hear more about
well, right. If you don't want to talk about made-up quotes, let me talk about something.
It was a long and lamentable story.
Okay.
And from then on, things didn't really improve.
What does that say about you, Boris Johnson?
Well,
aren't you, in fact, making up quotes, lying to your party leader, wanting to be part of someone being physically assaulted? You're a nasty piece of work, aren't you?
Were they chatting afterwards?
No, what happens after that programme is that you're treated to a BBC breakfast. Boris was nowhere to be seen, and I think he left. I think he felt it was discreet to go.
Did you stay?
Yes, I did.
Oh, free croissant for pensioners?
Yeah. And why not?
I expect you took a couple home in your bag.
So what did Boris say about the interview?
Is this being recorded? No, he was rather surprised because he was expecting to talk about how wonderful he was in the documentary, and he got caught out.
And he said he recovered. Despite not eating the breakfast with Joan, he went away and, being sort of quite clever at it, he said, yes, it's brilliant, the BBC, they should really have a go. Why not? If the BBC can't call, you know, a terrible old Tory nasty, then what can they do? Ha, hooray for me. And it sort of covered the ground, briefly.
That's exactly right. He said Eddie Mair did a splendid job. There is no doubt that is what the BBC is for, holding us to account. If a BBC presenter can't attack a nasty Tory politician, what is the world coming to? Yeah, Boris, you tosser. Not all of Eddie Mair's recent interviews have gone so well. Here he is having a casual chat with Sinead O'Connor.
Every interview I see with you drags up all of your past and
yes, that's not
forced to go through all of that. Well, tell me how things are now.
Good, really good. I'm great. I'm wonderful. I'm fantastic. I'm the greatest.
Are you trying to convince me or yourself?
No, no, I'm just making idle conversation.
Of course.
Till you ask me something interesting.
And the other
yeah.
Well, look, what are we going to hear?
You mean musically? Yes, musically.
Brilliant. Yeah,
yes.
we'll hear that. We'll hear that in just a second.
Yes. Well, that was the greatest
We're just
interview
about
I've
out of
ever
time.
done.
This is Boris Johnson's bicycle crash of an interview with Eddie Mair. Boris Johnson's father, Stanley Johnson, was disgusted by the interview and claimed the BBC has sunk about as low as it could. Obviously, he's not been following Operation U-Tree. Referring to his dismissal as a journalist from The Times, Eddie Mair asked Boris, "Why did you make up a quote?" To which Boris replied, "Because I'm a lying, deceitful shagger who hides behind a cynical facade of buffoonery." We may have made that quote up. Fingers on buzzers, teams.
We've got a new lawyer, have we?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, Ian.
It's the Hoons, and they've gone to jail.
She took his points for driving, and that was many years ago. And then when he left her for his mistress, she remembered that he'd broken them. And she was overcome by a great sense of citizenship and went, and went to tell the police, who prosecuted him. And then prosecuted her too.
And here he is, stood outside the court.
Some of these lenses aren't very efficient. You have to get...
I think it's a great will they, won't they story. Imagine when they get out. Imagine if they get back together.
Do you think somebody's...
You're going too fast for me. This is all so sudden.
I've quite a lot of sympathy for her, because he was a rat. But I think you find a lot of women feel absolutely outraged by what has happened to them. They do all sorts of mad and ill-advised things, like cutting up their husband's suits or pouring their wine down the drain. But I've got some sympathy with that.
Yeah. The best wronged wife story I ever heard was she had all his clothes taken in by 1.5 inches. Did you hear what the Sun had to say about Chris Huhne after the sentence was passed? The jailing of Huhne dramatically ends one of the most rapid rises in modern political history. Yes, he fought his way to the top through the massed ranks of literally 11 Lib Dem MPs. In her emails to the Sunday Times journalist Isabel Oakeshott, what did Vicky Pryce say Chris Huhne could never get over?
Not beating Clegg.
Is right, yes. She said he never got over the fact that he was only very marginally defeated by Nick Clegg, and it was partly because Clegg is better looking. I have to say I disagree. Chris Huhne. Because he's a very bad man.
You'd take his points, wouldn't you?
I would take his points all day long. This is the case of Huhne versus Pryce, the chattering class's answer to the Jeremy Kyle show. Chris Huhne was married to Vicky Pryce for 26 years. He now has a bisexual lover. And when he leaves prison, he's also got Karina Trimmingham. It was a long way to fall for the former deputy leader of a political party to end up in Wandsworth Prison. With its fearsome reputation for harassment, molestation and sexual predators, Huhne will be glad to leave the Lib Dem party behind. Fingers on buzzers, here's your next pie. Here we go, Paul.
Yes, this is the new Pope. We've not had anyone from Latin America before, and for the first time in 600 years there are 2 popes in existence. And this one's very good. He goes everywhere, he travels by bus, he doesn't insist on being called the Pope. He's a very humble Pope.
Yeah, travels by bus for free.
Yeah.
But if there's 2 popes,
yeah,
then presumably he could also give up, then there'd be 3 popes.
That's
as soon as
right.
you've got 3 popes, got yourself a boy band.
Exactly.
Yes, he lived a very frugal life. According to The Telegraph, after realising he wouldn't be going back to Argentina, Pope Francis found time to call a newsagent in Buenos Aires and cancel his delivery. Well, he don't want those copies of Kerrang backing up.
Like the newsagent wouldn't know he'd become Pope.
Well, I think they were very pleased in Argentina. Here's a woman reacting to the news that he's become Pope.
Argentina, levántate y anda. Y hoy Argentina se ha levantado. Gloria a ti, Señor Jesús.
And here is the reaction in London.
It's Cardinal Bergoglio from Buenos Aires.
David Lammy, the Labour MP, was furious at the BBC's coverage.
Yes.
Do we know why?
Yes. He believed that if they picked a black pope, we would see black smoke coming out the chimney, and if it was a white pope, white smoke, we'd see a white pope. He didn't understand this thing that's been going on for 2,000 years.
Exactly right, yes. He was annoyed by a BBC News tweet that said, "Will smoke be black or white?" And he responded, "This tweet from the BBC is crass and unnecessary. Do we really need this silly innuendo about the race of the next pope?" Wow. Do we know why popes take a different name when they're elected?
To protect the innocent.
It dates back to 533 AD, when the new pope thought his name Mercurius was too pagan-sounding, although his next choice, Bicurious, caused even more problems. As well as a new pope, we also have a new Archbishop of Canterbury. According to The Times, he marked his enthronement by saying, "Some gay couples have loving and monogamous relationships of stunning quality." Nice to see him reaching out to Catholic priests. Time now for the odd one out round. One between you this week. Your four are North Korea's military machinations, a landscape of lies starring and... Oh, blimey, the pictures are going so fast. North Korea's military machinations, a landscape
Machinations?
of... Yes, that's right, thank you.
I just thought I'd missed the new word, machination.
You need elocution lessons.
I do.
North Korea's military machinations. Yeah. North Korea's military machinations.
Yeah. Hislop, Magdalen College, Oxford.
Is it machination?
Mash, like mash.
Mash. North Korea's military machination.
I've got it. What about manoeuvres?
North Korea's military manoeuvrings. A landscape of lies starring Andrea McLean, mourners in Braintree, Essex, and John Lewis's Daffodils. Ian.
This is to do with faking it, because the North Koreans had a big military exercise of amphibious vehicles and released photographs of this brilliant, frightening event, and they'd photoshopped about half of them in to try and make it look better, because we're meant to think North Korea is incredibly scary. Maybe most of North Korea's arms are made of Lego.
We shouldn't let on we know. That's the key.
They watch the programme.
Well, as soon as they find out... Because they're photoshopping, they think, because they've only just got Photoshop in North Korea, they're going, this is unbelievable. Looks like we've got this massive army, we've got all these missiles. This will fool them. I'd rather they had Photoshop than sold them.
You should be at the Pentagon.
Who says I'm not, Ian?
So, yes, what's the odd one out?
Right, this doesn't look very convincing here as a piece of grieving, does it? It looks highly active. Is it actors doing it?
Oh, he hired some mourners.
Yes.
They're not real mourners.
Yes, that could well be right. So, which is the odd one
Oh,
out?
well, the John Lewis daffodils are fantastic. They look like daffodils, but you don't have to do anything and they don't die.
Well, because I don't know who she is and what she's doing, I think she must be the
You don't know who
That's her answer.
You don't know who Andrea McLean is?
No.
I'm on the wrong show.
She's
From
a
Loose
loose
Women.
A loose woman.
Well, if you were in the House of Lords, I would expect you to know. Because what if it comes up?
It's not a quiz, the House of Lords. They have...
Oh, yes,
they have debates.
No, but you'd be surprised. There was a big issue last week when we were pressing for an amendment. We were likely, the Labour, with the Lib Dems, were likely to defeat the Tories. They ran Skyfall in a room upstairs. So the Lords were occupied. They all came in, were given this film to watch, and then when the bell went, they all turned out in the lobby and defeated us.
It is an old people's home, isn't it?
They are all fake, apart from the film A Landscape of Lies, which, unbeknown to its star, Andrea McLean, was intended to be a tax dodge, never to be made, but ended up having to be made to throw the authorities off the scent. How did they pull the wool over the taxman's eyes?
Well, they made a little bit of it. Well, you weren't in it.
I wasn't in it, no. I did go up for it. But... yes, no, it's a bit like Argo, if you've seen that film. They faked scripts, they forged documents, they claimed the film would star Hollywood A-listers such as Jeremy Irons and his wife Sinead Cusack. North Korea's latest warmongering...
Oh, that's it.
Joking aside, North Korea has been threatening an all-out nuclear war. Anyone worried about that?
No.
No, Richard's not worried. Good. Well, it somehow makes me feel better.
You know what? Either it's not going to happen, in which case it's not a story, or it is going to happen, in which case this isn't going to go out, so... needn't detain ourselves, need we?
It's a win-win, almost.
Yeah.
That's the way to look at it.
Win-win, of course, is North Korea's head of defence.
Grieving relatives in Braintree in Essex who are worried their loved ones won't attract mourners at their funeral can now hire professional fake mourners. Do you know why you might need to rent a mourner?
Well, because you haven't got any friends.
Yes, that's probably right. £45 for one mourner for 2 hours is the going rate. What else do they throw in for your £45?
Croissant.
Costume. They might well bring their own clothes.
Right. Well, I'm sure, hopefully. You don't want naked mourners at your friend's funeral.
Well.
According to the founder, Ian Robertson, our staff will meet with the client beforehand and agree the story. So our staff will either have known the deceased professionally or socially. They will be informed of the deceased's background, achievements, failures, etc., so that they can converse with other mourners with confidence. I love talking about people's failures at a funeral, don't you?
Was it his first time driving a forklift truck?
On the subject of fakery, can anyone tell me what the scandal is lurking in this clip?
Imelda Staunton and John Cleese would have scored you 3 points. Timothy Spall, John Hurt and Jason Isaacs would have scored 2.
Richard, fess up.
What's happening there?
What have you been doing,
Literally
Richard?
haven't got a clue.
Are you not reading? Is there nothing on that laptop?
Oh, that's fakery, is it?
Oh,
yeah, isn't it?
yeah.
I have a laptop, but it's not on.
It's not on.
It doesn't exist. But, to be fair, people are always shocked. You say, I've done 520-odd episodes. I've never looked at it once.
I thought you were reading stuff out.
I was
But you were
reading
doing
stuff
it from
out.
your head. You're trying to look thicker than you are.
Yeah, you know, it's bloody hard.
They are all fake, apart from the film A Landscape of Lies, which, unbeknown to its star, Andrea McLean, was intended to be a tax dodge, never to be made, but ended up having to be made to throw the authorities off the scent. After Andrea McLean had filmed one scene, the former GMTV weather girl said, "This is going to be my best year." So yet another wildly inaccurate forecast. North Korea has been accused of photoshopping an image of their military gearing up for war. The photo was released from North Korea's capital, Pyongyang. Coincidentally, the noise made by the rubber band on their nuclear missile launchers. Time now for the Missing Words round, which this week features as its guest publication, Paperweight Collector's Circle. You can't miss it in the shops. It's always on top of all the other magazines. Can we start with Arthur Rubloff's What is What?
I think I know this one. Arthur Robloff's ass is hot.
That's the
Is
wrong
that
answer.
in the personal section of Paperweight Circle?
It's the wrong answer, but don't stop.
Arthur Rubloff's collection of paperweights is unique.
It's almost right. I'm going to give you that. Arthur Rubloff's glass paperweight exhibit is doubling in size. Next, farmer using rock to press ham what?
Is it farmer using rock to press ham doesn't understand the rules of rock, paper, scissors?
Discovers it's a meteorite?
Is the right answer.
Brilliant.
Farmer using rock to press ham discovers it is a meteorite worth $5.3 million.
And then uses it as a paperweight.
The Spanish farmer who owns it hasn't decided yet what he'll buy with the money. Possibly Spain. Next, hagfish slime what?
Seek similar, must have good sense of humour.
I think I know this one. It's a fashion thing, isn't it? So, like, latest fashion or something, you wear it, essentially.
Yes, is the right answer. This is the news that hagfish slime may be the clothes of the future. BBC News interviewed hagfish expert Tim Weingard, a researcher at the University of Guelph in Canada, studying the fibres found in hagfish slime. And the good news is, ladies, he's still single. Next, golfer takes a what in his pants?
Wedge.
It's not a tricky 12-incher, is it?
A birdie, an eagle.
An eagle?
That would be a good story.
Might be owl.
Oh,
Takes
see,
Takes an owl in his pants.
Yeah.
A 2-week holiday?
Yeah, the answer is golfer takes a putt in his pants. Next, what has rhythm and taste for disco music?
Is it Ian?
Not human.
a flea. A seal.
A
Blimey,
sea
that was a good
lion.
guess.
A sea lion is
Sea
the right
lion.
answer. A sea lion has rhythm and a taste for disco music. Let's watch her.
Will it do something else? Is that it?
That's all she does, yeah.
That is the 3rd time you've shown that Ed Balls clip now.
So, the final scores are Richard and Paul have a very creditable 7, but this week's winners are Joan and Ian with 11 points. But before we go, there is just time for the caption competition.
Is it Cabinet can finally meet in peace as George Osborne enjoys the activity table? Osborne finds final nail, searches for coffin.
On which note, we say thank you to our panellists Ian Hislop and Joan Bakewell, Paul Merton and Richard Osman. And I leave you with news that in West London, a journalist from Hello magazine waits to interview Richard Osman in his lovely new home. Having been found guilty of tax evasion, one man learns that his cell will overlook the women's prison next door. And as presenters gather to mark the closing of TV Centre, John Sargent bravely faces the world after an attack of mumps. Good night.
Words for level. We're filming Pointless at the moment. We did one yesterday, and we had a round on famous assassinations. The easy question was, this person was shot in Dallas by Lee Harvey Oswald. So you get to the end of the round, the woman goes, I'll go at the obvious one. She goes, it's J.R. Ewing.